Inside Boxing's Throwdown. I'm Aurelio Martinez, Stephen Johnson, and this segment's our open topic, and we got a lot of stuff to talk about. We're going to briefly touch, Steve, we're going to briefly touch on next week's fights, because we got some good fights. Right. We're going to talk about Dana White getting in the mix of boxing, and he's got some big financial backing behind him. Yes. And we're going to talk about the drug lord running amateur boxing in the world. Okay? Yes. So let's get with it. Tell us a little bit about what we can look forward to next week.
Well, next week we actually have some good action. I think we'll start off with actually on Friday on Bounce TV. You'll have Ishe Smith versus Tony Harrison. That's at the Sam's Town Hotel and Gambling Hall in Las Vegas.
And that's probably premier, right? Boxing?
No, Bounce TV. Oh, yeah, I'm sure it's a premier boxing show. Yeah, but then on ESPN on Saturday, we have Vasily Lomachenko taking on Jorge Linares, which should really be an entertaining fight. Then also on Saturday, we go to on HBO, Saddam Ali taking on Jaime Munguia. And then follow that up with Romero Duno taking on Gilberto Gonzalez. That'll be on ESPN too. Yeah, so good fights next week.
Real quick, just to touch on them real quick. The two of interest, of course, is Lomachenko. Yes. And Jorge Linares. I think that's going to be a good fight. Yes. I think that's going to be a good fight. And then Saddam Ali, because, you know, he actually got a little boost, and it has to be a mental boost as well when he beat Miguel Cotto. Yes. Now, you know, it was Miguel's last fight, and he knew it, and he was going to retire. Right. It was just an exit out of boxing, but still, he stood in there, and you're not going to tell me that Miguel didn't want to retire with the win. He did, and he just couldn't do it. So, yeah. So he's got it. So two good fights to watch next week. Very, very good fights.
I would agree. All right. And then you wanted to talk about Dana White.
Let's talk about Dana White getting into the boxing scene. Okay, now, you know, we always talk about, or I do, I always talk about the strong arms in boxing and kind of shield everyone else out, and that's of course Top Rank, Golden Boy, and Mayweather, because you know they're the promotional companies with all the money that can kind of hog up the talent and do that. As a matter of fact, you've seen where Bob Arum was talking about pulling in some of Al Heyman's fighters in, because he's a lawyer, and he said legally Al Heyman's only an advisor, and
well, we know he's a man.
So that leaves the door open for legally for him to go after some of them fighters. So obviously they're trying to keep up the stables, and they want to keep locked. So with Dana White made an announcement where him and I believe a billionaire is backing him up, and we're talking about hundreds of millions of dollars that they're going to put into this boxing. I think it's Zephyr Boxing promotions that they're Zuffa, right? Yeah, ZEFF. But anyhow, it's named after the investor, the guy that's in with Dana. But you know, I kind of like it, okay, because now it just like Bob Arum and Oscar De La Hoya tried to team up and bounce Al Heyman out of the picture. They couldn't, because Al Heyman had the big investors. So he was able to meet them in time in the court and make them spend big money if they're going to take that. Well, now the same scenario is going to be facing with Dana White coming into boxing. They've got the money, so I'm thinking they're not even going to try to sue him or do whatever they want to do. But I like it. The only one thing is they are in negotiations, and they're talking with Mikey Garcia, okay?
Who's under Al Heyman.
Is under Al Heyman, which would make a fantastic Zephyr to sign Mikey, because now you're getting top quality, you're getting the top of the bench, you're getting everybody, all the Mexican people that want to watch this guy. It would be great. But I don't know if that's going to happen, because Al Heyman's not just going to let him come in and swoop up Mikey Garcia. And I'm not sure if it's a real good move for Mikey Garcia into what would start a big, long, strung-out legal battle, which again may shelve,
like he did with Top Rank,
which may shelve Mikey for another couple of years. So I think Mikey needs to talk to his legal team, his lawyers, and find out what he can do before he decides to say, okay, I can't just take Dana White's word that it's okay. He's got to make sure. I'm not sure Mikey should even take the chance, honestly.
All right, so let's get right to it. You know, AIBA, the governing body for amateur boxing in the world, is under controversy. It's been widely speculated and actually talked about in Europe for the last year and a half. Well, let me just say this, the last 6 months for sure. It's been talked about where a boxing official described as one of Uzbekistan's leading criminals, and that's by United States authorities. He was named as the interim president of AIBA, and his name is Rakhimov. Okay, Gafur Rakhimov. He was promoted after the unexpected resignation of interim leader Franco Falcinelli from Italy.
Italy, yep.
And the reason this is of interest is because once again we come into this thing about, I try to keep my finger on this pulse.
Yep.
It comes to this thing about this word that, I even USA Boxing, I like to use a lot, and that's, where they say we're transparent. The transparency is the issue here. And it's the fact that when you get into it and you find out that Gafur Rakhimov has been the vice president of AIBA for the last 15 years.
Wow.
Yes. With these ties to the heroin trade and with the opiate issues that we have in the United States, to have them work under this guy, okay, it's concerned. But I think what's most concerning, should be concerning to our USA Boxing folks, is that, very quietly during all this thing, when they got rid of Dr. Wu, which is under question because at that time there was a USA Boxing guy, Tom Vergetz, was part of the financial, I think, part of AIBA, and he's the one who kind of led this thing to get rid of Dr. Wu. Okay, most people had no problem with that,
right? But
the IOC was the ones who had the problem the way it was done. Tom Vergetz actually at some point said it wasn't his decision; it was he and two other guys their decisions. He finally had to admit that the decision was his. Okay? So when I talk about transparency, I'm talking about, I think this is why USA Boxing and American media have said nothing about this, because USA Boxing has kind of slid themselves into a position where they might be in a position of power. Okay? Right. Because right now we have Angel Villarreal, Tom Vergetz, specifically those two are in positions of authority with AIBA. So I think this is why USA Boxing isn't that much to say about it. But the problem that we have is that Gafur Rakhimov is not even allowed in the United States. The United States actually was attempting to seize all of his assets, his bank accounts, because of these ties to organized crime. And for him to, first of all, be the vice president, and then get promoted to president. Now, they say the reason that he got promoted to president was because they had no choice. They said their own bylaws dictated that he would, be promoted to...
Or they might get shot.
I'm not going to go that far. Well, Rakhimov was alleged to be key to really renegotiating a $10 million loan from AIBA's main creditor, Bankins, a company from Azerbaijan. Now, and then there was the new president at that time said he did that, talk about Rakhimov, said he did that on his own. And he said, I was not aware of any travel issues that would prevent Rakhimov working at AIBA headquarters in the Olympic capital of Busan. Okay, but then, USA Boxing came back and they said, AIBA came back and said they were confident he would provide the leadership to restore AIBA to greatness. Okay, so if you want to interpret it like a normal lay person like me and like yourself, you're saying, they're basically saying, we don't care. He's renegotiating this loan of $10 million that Dr. Wu is supposed to have been involved in. He's just taking care of some debts. Right. Okay, he's taking care of some debts. So if that's the way they want to look at it and everybody's okay with that, hey, but I can say this, it has reminiscent to me of a situation you remember we had with Pablo Escobar, in Colombia. Pablo Escobar went and rejuvenated and totally financed soccer in Colombia. Right. And so nobody said anything because they're like, hey, it's good. It's good that, all this stuff in Colombia is going on. Well, you can't have it both ways. If you're going to have a clean organization, you can't have it rife with, can't think of another business where you have a guy that's the head of the company that, he's allegedly a known drug dealer. And they're talking about heroin, Aurelio. And heroin is the #1 opiate problem in the United States right now.
You better believe it. Believe it.
So I don't see how this is, like I said, if USA Boxing wants to go ahead and their stance is, which I believe it is that don't worry about it because everything's going to be okay because we're kind of going to get in a position of power. But for them, first of all, not to say it, not to say, you know, this guy, there's no one in USA Boxing, as far as I've seen, that has said, hey, this guy can't be the head of this. This guy has to go. We have to get him out of there. And if they want Tom Burgess to be the guy to do that, that's okay, but they need to say something.
Now, let me, you know, I read the stories that have just really come out all over the internet now about him being a drug lord and things like that. Now, obviously, I take it these are all fact, right? That I mean, I don't know enough about to condemn or not, but what I would like to do is I'd like for him to come out and come out with a statement or a press release or something like that, or a press conference stating his, because obviously, what do you, you know, I'm trying to find a way to say that, you know, unless this guy has been condemned or convicted or proven, doesn't mean he can't do good. But everything I've read really points to him being involved with drugs, okay, and narcotics and stuff like that.
Well, let me say that. Tom Burgess, when he was elected executive director of AIBA, and he was done that by Falcinelli, who, for all intents and purposes, had a position for only just a hot minute. It looks like one of his jobs was to hire Burgess as executive director. You know, Burgett said that as AIBA's CEO, his priority is running USA Boxing. I'm sorry, he was president of USA Boxing from 2006 to 2010. Okay. He said, but as AIBA's CEO, I believe that my position is to ensure that transparency is reestablished, together with a high level of knowledge sharing throughout our organization. I believe AIBA and the sport of boxing have many positive values, and it's essential to get back on the same values that our sport is built on. He never once said anything regarding the allegations of Gafur Rakhimov. Rakhimov, just all he said was that, you know, it's not true. That's all he said. And then once again branches into, we're into this new era of AIBA, where everything is going to be up front and center, mainly focused on bringing positive change. I know for a fact that one of the things that Tom Burgess had a lot to do with is the fact that we have, I think it's May 21st to 26th down in Colorado Springs, we have the World Youth, the international competition, the Youth International Competition, where there'll be a bunch of countries coming down to Colorado Springs highlighting our youth. I'm sure Tom Burgess had a lot to do with that. So if you want to say that's a positive, that's going in the right direction, that could be. But all I'm saying is that when you continually use the word transparency, and there literally is no transparency, because there's no way, as with Gafur being named the president of of AIBA, somebody from USA Boxing should have had a statement, and it would probably come down to be your president of USA Boxing, John Brown, would come out and say, hey, this guy has no business being in that position. But John Brown is a good friend of mine, and John Brown, you have to remember, Tom Burgess is his guy. Yeah, well, so, I mean, like I said, that's just a transparency issue.
My point. They never have been, and don't expect it to ever will be a transparency type where everything's open, and it should be. But it's not going to be that way. You can go all the way down to your LBCs. It's always that attitude, we do things my way, or you can leave and turn pro or do whatever you want. It's always been that way. Back as long as I've been involved, back into the 70s, it's always been that way. You do it my way. No explanation, no nothing. I'm talking about, when I say do it my way, I'm not necessarily talking about do it USA Boxing's way or AIBA way. I'm talking about that one individual with his ego. You do it my way. It's always been that way. Nothing's changed. And until you start at the top and start to change this type of attitude, nothing's going to happen. It's going to change it. USA Boxing may fold and just open up under a new name. They've done it before. They were called something else, and IOC has no problem with that. They just continue to go. But I'll tell you what, if indeed there's any truth to this man being a involved in cartel or drug or heroin or whatever they say in the stories, then the IOC has no choice but to withdraw boxing from Olympic competition. They really have no choice. You cannot set that precedence because of all the other sports in Olympic Games. Okay, what are you sending that message out? Okay, well, it's okay for you to do what you want. You can do this. It's wrong. It's wrong because it's for the youth. It's for the amateurs. And when I say youth, I'm talking about not necessarily kids. I'm talking about Olympic competition. Okay, so they have to. They have no choice but to withdraw from the Olympic game, withdraw boxing from the Olympic game to take a stance, saying this is not going to happen because AIBA, of course, is the governing sanctioning body worldwide. So you need to take a stance and say, okay, it's not going to happen in this sport, and it's not going to bleed into the other sports of Olympic Games for the United States.
Well, let me say in closing that, you know, and I'm saying this because I want you guys to just think about this. You know, once again, Gafur Rakhimov was pointedly named as a hero and kingpin that the Australian government banned from attending the Sydney Olympics as part of the Uzbekistan boxing team, where when he admitted that Russia, that he helped Russia win the Winter Games by obtaining critical votes. Now, he denied that it was by bribes. But how else are you going to get critical votes?
That's what I'm saying. You have to take a stance. You say that was Australia?
Yeah.
Okay. Very good for them, and I applaud them. I tip my hat to them because that's what you have to do. Okay. USA is now in a position. The IOC is now. What are you going to do? There's very little we can do worldwide, but what are you going to do? Okay, and that's going to be interesting to see what they do.
In 2012. United States Treasury officials were out to try to freeze Rakhimov's bank accounts, describing him as a key member of a huge Russian-Asian criminal syndicate called the Brothers Circle. Russian Olympic Committee President Leonid Taigachev thanked Rakhimov for his single-minded work in obtaining IOC members' votes for Sochi. That's all I have to say.
There you go, guys. Well, anyhow, we went over because I think that's very important. It's very important to let people know. So now we'll just have to sit back as the public and see exactly what the IOC here in the United States does. And that's all we can do.
That's all we can do is wait and see.
We'll keep you apprised. We'll keep you updated on our show. So with that, Steve,
hey,
come back and see us next week when we do it again.
That's right. Keep you up.